What up, everybody? It's Aaron with Robert, and this is Get Your Geek on Talkin Geek.
And this week, we've got a lot of things to get through, a couple big ones and then some minor stuff. Big stuff, we got a Moonknight trailer for the new Disney Plus series. So we're going to be talking about that. Some more Marvel news, Black Panther delayed again. We're going to talk a little bit about that. And then there's been a bunch of small stuff. Obviously Microsoft and Blizzard. There was a reveal of the Lord of the Rings title, a bad interview that we're going to just briefly talk on, and a couple other things that we'll get into as we go through the episode. So where do you want to start? You want to start with the Moonknight trailer?
Duh. We got to get Dracula to come out though in it now too. I want that scene, dude. I want it so bad.
Yeah, I love that panel where I think, pardon my language, I'm pretty sure the exact quote is, "Dracula, you fucking nerd, where's my goddamn money?"
And I need this in this film or this series. I mean,
so yeah, I mean, I will be honest. Up until I think I saw that panel a couple years ago, I didn't really know much about Moonknight, and I kind of have done a little bit of research and everything, and understand. He's got, the backstory with him is he is either possessed by an Egyptian god or he's straight up insane.
Schizophrenia. Yep.
Sometimes the writers lean heavier into one more than the other. There is always some kind of Egyptian imagery going on with him, but whether or not he's actually possessed by an Egyptian god or he's just, has dissociative disorder and schizophrenia, different writers kind of do different things. So we don't know exactly what role they're going to play in the show. But the first trailer was released. This is coming at the end of March, so this is going to be our next Marvel series on Disney Plus that we're getting, but a pretty significant gap. I mean, Hawkeye ended right before Christmas, and we're not going to get this series until I think the last Wednesday of March, March 30th. So, we're going a decent chunk of time here without any Marvel content. But yeah, the first trailer dropped. Oscar Isaac playing the character of Moon Knight. Ethan Hawke is in this as a villain, and so I'm looking forward to it. Yeah,
I am too. I loved Ethan. So I mentioned a movie to you a while back, and I think maybe 10 people saw this movie called Daybreakers, which has Ethan Hawke and William Dafoe in it. And I liked Ethan Hawke's character. He was kind of playing a vampire who was not so much evil, but was trying to figure stuff out. So I'm kind of curious how he is going to be as an evil, straight up maybe vampire-ish.
I mean, he looks like a straight up cult leader. Is what he looks like. And that's a very interesting. I mean, I don't know if you saw. I think it's Bad Times at the El Royale.
Gosh, I think I did.
And Chris Hemsworth plays like a cult leader, and it's you have that magnetic personality, and Ethan Hawke totally has.
Oh yeah.
And so it's I'm really interested to see how they play that.
I am too, and I'm wondering slightly if he is going to be a vampire, because rumors are Blade might come out.
Yep.
Who else was rumored to come out? She-Hulk? Was She-Hulk or not She-Hulk?
No, I don't think so. But Black Knight, I think,
Black Knight, that was the
possibility.
Other one. I mean, so I'm curious if we're going to get it. And we do see the costume, and it does look like the bandages just wrap around him. And I liked seeing it because I think the next scene we see is him beating something up in the hallway, because that leg does not look human.
Yeah. It is clearly some kind of creature. I just actually rewatched it, and I was really paying attention. And it was he's beating up a creature of some kind, whether it's a vampire or werewolf, something else. Maybe it's a flashback scene, and he's beating up a Chitauri during the New York invasion. I mean, we have no clue. And so it is something very interesting for sure.
And that's one thing I wonder if they're going to tie any of this to any of the Avengers films, like the Chitauri, where was he during it? And yeah, it'd be cool if it was he was just beating the crap out of him, one-on-one, and just he may have only taken 12 down, but they died. They really did.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing with this character in Moon Knight. If you're unfamiliar with him, he, again, we kind of explained a little bit of his origin, but he's also he's kind of a little bit Batman-esque. He's got the street level, he's kind of a detective. He uses a lot of gadgets. He's, kind of like how Batman has batarangs. He's got moonarangs. Basically. But he is a killer. So he's that next step up from Batman, where it's like, no, he'll use guns and shoot you in the face. He'll, stab you through the head with a spear, like whatever. Like he's, he is a killer. He's a mercenary in a lot of stories as well. So it'll be very interesting to see how they play all that, because it does look like in this world that they're setting up in the trailer that he clearly has some like underworld contacts. He has, so it looks like he, at least in one of his lives, is a mercenary of some kind.
Yeah. I mean, and the best way to describe him, I mean, you hit it on the nail, the hammer on the nail, but I always look at him this way. He's Batman and Punisher having a baby. If you were to merge those two together, you get him, because you get the psychotic side of Frank Castle, of where it's just like black and white, don't care about anything. The detective side of Batman, the money of Batman, the combat training of both characters. Yeah. I mean, because both of them are deadly. But yeah, like you said, it's just someone who doesn't mind killing. And I'm excited to see how are we going to play. I would like to see how they're going to play it. Is it going to be he is possessed by a god? Is he schizophrenic, associative disorder? Or is it going to be one of those, we're not going to say it, we'll let you interpret it. Maybe he is a little of both. Yeah. And I would love to see that played out.
And they kind of, they at least hint to what he believes it is, because in the trailer they talk about, how he has this sleeping disorder where he can't differentiate between his real life and dreams. He's got like this, thing that basically keeps him tied to his bed. So if he wakes up in the middle of the night and, isn't conscious of what he's doing, then it'll keep him there. Which, I mean, there are certain sleep disorders that people have. I mean, there's been sleep disorders where people have seriously injured themselves or others because, their body is moving in the world without their brain. And so it'll be interesting, like clearly he's been diagnosed with that, whether or not that's what it actually is. I think, we'll explore some of that. And ultimately, I think it is so interesting to me. Like we've had 5 series up to this point on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
We've had, we had WandaVision, we had Falcon and Winter Soldier, we had Loki, we had What If, and we had Hawkeye. And it is so interesting to me that this is our first, we're introducing a new character, because in all those other ones, it was a character we knew previously from the movies. We had Wanda and Vision, we had Falcon and Winter Soldier, we had Loki, we had Hawkeye, like all those things. And yes, they did introduce new characters in those shows, but not any of them that were really like the main character or weren't tied to someone. Like Kate Bishop, was a main character, but she was tied very heavily to our Hawkeye character. And this is the first Disney Plus series that's literally introducing a brand new character that we don't have any connections to. Now, they may reveal some tangential connections, but I don't think he's going to be like, oh, and he was also at the battle in upstate New York against Thanos. Like, I don't think Moonknight was there.
No.
And so it'll be it's really interesting to me that this is the character they chose for that. And I know there's been some different delays and production delays and things like that. And I think Miss Marvel was supposed to debut before Moon Knight initially. But again, that's another character who's very tied to an Avenger, tied to Captain Marvel. So just kind of, I don't know, I find it fascinating that this is the character they chose. And I hope that's for a really good reason.
And I'm sure it is. I mean, again, it's going to connect us hopefully to Black Knight more, to Blade more, and to the underworld, and give us a whole different side of the Marvel universe we have yet to see.
And it'll be really interesting as well to see how dark they go with it, because this character, the Disney Plus shows have not been as violent and dark as the Netflix Marvel shows were Daredevil and Punisher and all those things. But now we're getting into a character like Moon Knight, who, similar to Punisher, as you said, is a murderer, is psychotic, and so it's one of those things like, are we gonna hit hard? Are we gonna go that far with these Disney Plus shows? And especially for having somebody like Blade show up. I mean, he's got that mentality as well. Like, nope, if you're a vampire, I will kill you.
Exactly.
And so it's one of those things where it's like, I don't know, I'm torn because it's Disney. And so of course you go, Disney's not gonna do anything like that.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, to do these characters justice, I do think they don't have to do gratuitous violence, but if you look at the MCU, there are very few instances where we see blood except like the aftermath. Like we see Black Widow, fall to her death or Gamora, and there's like that pool of blood kind of out of focus a little bit, but you don't see them hit the ground and see the blood pouring out of their head. And I'm not saying we needed that in those movies, but I do think when you're getting into these like close combat characters that kill, we're going to need to see some damage from the fights that they're having. If I'm fighting with a knife and, like it's two characters going back and forth and then one of them dies and you don't see any blood during that entire scene, that feels weird. And so it's just one of those things. It's like, how far are they going to push it?
And that I'm love that you say that, because I think Daredevil season 2, the episode, you saw that season, right? I think.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Like you said, I could not imagine the scene where Punisher is in the jailhouse and has that murderous scene where he kills all those guys. I couldn't imagine like not seeing that blood, because that's what sold it. As the more he kills, he almost looks like he's getting enraged because he's getting covered in blood and more blood and more blood. And he's the only one really wearing white. So by the end of it, it's pretty much a pink shirt now because it's saturated in blood.
Right.
And it's like that scene wouldn't have sold if he didn't have the blood. It would have been like, oh, he just beat them all up. Okay, thanks, Batman Jr. And then just that's it. But yeah, I really want to know how far they're going to push it, especially, again, we're more likely going to get creatures, whether it's going to be vampires, werewolves and stuff. And then the other side, again, this is still dabbling with a different version of the mystic arts, not so much Doctor Strange, but could this start tying into Shang-Chi? Because I mean, his bands are, some type of magic. We don't know yet or exactly what.
Yeah, mystic in nature of some kind.
So I'd be curious if they tied him somehow to it, especially because his dad was thousands of years old. So maybe I would love to see, like, maybe at some point they ran into each other and we'll get at least one more scene with the dad.
Yeah, the Egyptian god ran into Wenwu.
Yeah, it's like, wait, what are you doing here?
Yeah, Tony Leung is acting royalty in China. I don't think he's coming back for a Moonknight cameo appearance. I just have to say.
I can dream.
It would be great.
Like you said, on production wise, it moves us straight into Black Panther and their production, right? Because
Black Panther Wakanda Forever, which is slated to come out in November of this year after a few delays. That's the current release date is November this year. They had to shut down production in late November of last year due to the injury to Letitia Wright. She had, suffered a shoulder and head injury. I think they said it was a concussion. She was recovering at home. And then, they kind of said, okay, we're going to shut down kind of for the holidays and we'll come back in early January and, start shooting again. And they did, and Letitia Wright came back and they were getting ready to do some more shootings. And I think they did even a couple days, and now they've had to shut down production again due to an outbreak of COVID. And so, we don't know who's affected. We do know that Lupita Nyong'o had COVID. She has another movie out in theaters, the 355. And so she had announced she was stepping away from like their press tour and all that stuff because she had contracted it. We don't really know, did she contract it on the set of Black Panther? Or is this outbreak completely unrelated to her? I have no idea. But either way, another delay for Black Panther and their production schedule. It's starting to wonder, is this going to affect that release date? Now they still have 10 months basically, and you have to assume that they use some of that time where they were taking a break off from production to do some of their post-production stuff, whether it's the stuff they'd already shot. Were they working on editing, storyboarding? Were they working on some visual effects, like things like that? You have to assume they were doing some of that already. So, they're probably gonna be a little bit further along in the post-production process than maybe you normally would by the time they finish shooting. But obviously, the biggest thing in any movie is principal photography. The biggest thing is getting the shots in. And so now this is the second time they've had to stop doing that. So I don't know. You kind of make movies or have made movies. So what do you think? Are we gonna get Black Panther this year?
I honestly don't think so. And here's why. Because yes, you're right. The smart thing would have been to do the post-production while she's not filming. And they did say while she's overseas, right? She's in Europe, I believe.
Yeah, she lives in London. So okay. That's where she was recovering. Yeah.
So when she was gone, I remember they said they shot everything they could that she wasn't in. So right. That was a smart move. Like, okay, she's not here. Let's get everyone else in and get that done. And if they were smart, they probably could have done some like trickery with the cameras to say, okay, well, she is supposed to be here, but we'll shoot your dialogue while she's not here.
Yeah, now, and I mean that happens a lot. That happens a lot in movies where you shoot the same scene, from 4 or 5 different angles because you're getting different characters, different reactions, whatever. Like anytime you have a conversation where the camera cuts between the 2 characters and you see like their face on it, those are from different shots and different conversations. Like absolutely.
So if they did all that, then they might make it by November. If they were smart, I would probably delay it 1 more month just to make sure they can get all the editing done. Because I don't know how much they have left to film with her, how much she needs to do. Because, I mean, you got to think, like, anything that she's in, it's going to be the fight scenes especially. So those are going to require editing. Any of the effects that they're going to use for the armor and all that, there's going to be a lot of, graphic effects. Now, unless they can throw the stunt double in that suit and then film without her, which would be another thing to try.
Well, and we don't know what her role is yet. Like, is she going to put on the suit? We don't know. So yeah, I mean, it's the size of her role and, what exactly she's doing in those scenes is obviously going to impact, what they were able to shoot without her. I don't know. I think they're still going to make it to that November release date, but I also don't think it would be the worst thing in the world to delay it. Like you said, maybe a month to like that Christmas time. I mean, we just saw Spider-Man No Way Home absolutely crushed it coming out in the middle of December. Now that's a different movie, but I do think, it used to be that December was kind of a, Oscar time. Like you didn't release blockbusters. Blockbusters were summertime movies. And it was a few years ago. It was, like 2015 when Star Wars The Force Awakens came out around Christmas and just absolutely crushed.
That's right.
And that really, it seems like changed the mentality. Now, it's still not a time where you can just, say we're going to have 5 blockbusters throughout the month of December that are all going to come out. Like, but if you've got the one that, is the movie everyone wants to see. I mean, people have, Christmas break, a couple weeks off. People can go to the theaters. So I think the time, I think executives have realized that Christmas time is absolutely a good time to release a big, huge franchise movie if you think it's going to be the biggest movie of that season. Like if it's the second season of the movie of the season, like we had, some other movies like The Kingsman came out or The Matrix Sing Resurrections 2 came out, and those 2 in particular, I don't know much about Sing 2. Those 2 in particular really underwhelmed and were completely dominated by Spider-Man. So it's kind of the thing where you want to be that number one. Like if you've got, like your middle movie, Christmas still may not be the time for you. But I think, a movie like Wakanda Forever, which there's a ton of anticipation for, it's obviously in the MCU, so that's a big thing. The first movie made over $1 billion. We're bringing everybody back except obviously Chadwick Boseman. And it's part of this larger narrative that is the MCU. I think if you ended up putting that at Christmas time, I think it would still perform extremely well. So I think we're going to get it either in November or December. As of now, that November release date is still on the books.
And I agree. I think it is, no matter what, it's going to blow up the box office, whether it's going to be November or December. Like you said, we're getting pretty much everybody back except Chad. We are getting, and the good thing is, for this film, and I think especially, there's that old saying, and it's going to kind of lead into our next subject. There's no such thing as bad publicity. Some people are upset with Robert's smiling right now because he knows what I'm talking about. So, but for this movie, it works because one, it keeps getting talked about. Oh, we want you to replace Chad. We want you to replace Chadwick Boseman, replace him. And then you get the other people like, don't replace him. Just move on. Let's keep his legacy the way it was. So I think people are going to be curious where the film goes. If you show just enough in the trailer to pique the curiosity, which Marvel is good about doing that, but not enough to tell you what we're going to do. I think No Way Home was the perfect example. Like, I mean, we all knew Andrew, and spoiler, Andrew and Toby are in the film. We all knew that was coming, but Marvel did their best to try to hide it in every trailer that it's just Tom Holland. We promise it's just him. Okay, we've been lying. Yeah, you already knew, but still. And I hope they do something like that with Black Panther. And if they do that same marketing scheme, you're going to get enough people curious who are like, did they replace Chad? Or is she going to take over? Or, which I hope not, is Killmonger somehow back and he's taking over? Or somebody else coming up and taking up the mantle,
Yeah, and that's the thing, and we've talked about it before. I don't want to speculate because I just want to go in and enjoy whatever choice they make. I want to go in and judge that choice based on its own merits. I don't want to be like, well, I think they should have done this, but they ended up doing this, and I'm not as happy. Like, this is the movie. I do like to speculate, but this movie in particular, because of that, the unique circumstance that we're in where we lost our leading man, I really just want to, because in my brain, every time I go, well, what if they did this? I think, no, that's terrible. Because I'm not the creative Hollywood guy. I can't come up with a good explanation for what happened to T'Challa. And so I don't want to be the one that's coming up with an idea. I want to let the idea people come up with one, and then I'll go see it and I'll critique it. I'm much better at critiquing than coming up with the idea myself. So
yeah, there you go. No, I mean, I get you on that, because I mean, like, try to do a film, it's like but yeah. And now, enough on that one, and we can go into how bad news is bad news for somebody.
Yeah, sometimes there is bad publicity. And I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this.
No, we don't.
But if you've been following the news, you know that for several years now, there have been a lot of accusations, primarily, started by Ray Fisher, who was the actor that played Cyborg in the Justice League, against Warner Brothers, and specifically against Joss Whedon, saying that he was abusive on set, saying that he, was just really unprofessional and other things. And that kind of opened up the floodgates on Joss Whedon, and like all the way back to Buffy the Vampire Slayer. He was obviously he's responsible for some of the biggest TV shows of the early 2000s, whether it be Buffy, Firefly is hugely popular. He was, heavily involved in, I think his Dollhouse, I think is another one that he was responsible for. He was involved with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. He did the first two Avengers movies, and then, was brought in to do the Justice League. And there's kind of been stories from almost every one of those projects about some of his behaviors, whether they were just, threatening, abusive, different things like that. And he finally kind of came out and really for the first time addressed some of those controversies or some of those allegations. And I don't want to get into all the details of it, but my personal feeling on it was I felt like he offered a very poor response to the allegations. He basically just kind of said, a lot of it was a misunderstanding, or it was, like this person's just, like they're just making up stories, or that doesn't sound like me. He offered a lot of, well, they're wrong. And he didn't show any really real contrition. He didn't really, say like, oh, I'm, I need to examine that and look at myself and see what I need to do differently. And he didn't offer any apologies or anything like that. It just was, to me, it was a really poor response to allegations. And, this has been 2 or 3 years that these allegations have been out there. So if it took him this long and this is still the response he gave, he kind of just sounds like a sociopath to me. Again, that's my personal opinion. He sounds like he probably did pretty much everything he's been accused of, and just doesn't want to be held accountable for it, and is trying to get it squirm out from him under it any way he can. But I don't think this interview did him any favors, and I don't think he's going to squirm out from under it.
No, I don't think so either. And that's like the funny thing. You said yourself, it took 2 to 3 years for him to finally be like, so I got something to say. And it was not a sorry. It wasn't like, you know what, I was a different person back then. I'm sorry. I've learned my lesson after what X, Y, and Z. But no, it was literally like, nah, it's still you. Gal Gadot doesn't know how to speak English properly. That's probably where she misunderstood me. And that, when he said that line, I was like, oh, and
yeah, he's like, English wasn't her first language, and she misunderstood what I was saying. Wow. Yeah. First of all, that's like, if you can just think of like the worst way to say anything, that you said it. But I did love her response.
Oh yeah, it was basically the F you without saying F you. Right. It was basically like, I did perfectly I understood exactly what you said, and I will never work with you again, and I'm never going to recommend any of my friends to work with you. Something along those lines.
Yeah, basically.
But it was like, F you to F you. But yeah, like we don't want to talk a lot about it. Like we said, we both kind of agree that this was a very jerk move.
Right. We weren't there. We can't say definitively whether any of this stuff happened, but I think both of our feelings is he sounds like a serial abuser and a jerk.
Yeah. And that's when, like, reminds me of those days, never meet your idol. Cause like I used to love his work back in the day. And now it's
The Avengers is still probably my favorite MCU movie.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to kind of put that in my brain and go, and he made it. Because I still love that movie. I still do. I think it's, just a fantastic movie about this team coming together. And, I think it's very funny. I think it's got great action. I think like all those things. And I kind of, it is hard. Firefly is still a incredibly fun series that we can watch. I never really got into Buffy, but I know a lot of people that love it. And so it's another one of those, like, can you separate the art from the artist?
Exactly.
And still examine the art for issues that are coming through from that artistry. Like there are some complaints about those Avengers movies that they, some of the depictions of Black Widow, and are they a little bit sexist and things like that. And so, it's one of those things where you go, we kind of have to look at it that way now that we know these things about Joss Whedon. And that may or may not affect how you enjoy those movies moving forward.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. Good luck to him, I guess. Bad luck to him. I don't know what to say to that part, but you know what? His career's gone. That's all I know.
It certainly seems like it. Yeah.
But Lord of the Rings, we got a title.
Yeah, we did. Amazon is doing their series on Lord of the Rings. We've had very little knowledge about it. They released a 30-second teaser, which is literally just revealing the title. I did read a story that they did this all practically, what they did. I don't know if you watched it. They kind of, it was where they are melting down, metal and pouring it into a mold or whatever, whether it's for a sword or whatever. So they did that, and they actually really did it. This wasn't special effects. They actually were working with metallurgist people to actually so those moments where you see the molten metal kind of flowing through, that's real. They actually did that. I thought that was pretty cool. But that we finally have a title and a release window. It said fall 2022, so that's still not a date, but at least a window for
September, October, November.
For the series, which is just called The Rings of Power. So there's the voiceover in this little teaser, which is also kind of the same voiceover from the movies, and is of course in the books as well, where they talk about the various rings that were created, 3 for the elves, 5 for the dwarves, 9, or I think it's 5 for the dwarves, maybe it's 7. It's either 5 or 7 for the dwarves. I don't remember. 9 for men, and then the 1 ring to rule them all. Those rings were forged during the Second Age of Middle Earth, which is when this series is set. So it certainly seems like this is going to play a big role in kind of this is a prequel, but it's going to be characters that we don't really know.
Did they say
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I was going to say, did they say if any of that, because the only ones that could be there are younger versions of the elves, right?
Because we do know that the 3 rings of power that the elves had, at least 2 of them were held by Galadriel and Elrond, who are Cate Blanchett and Hugo Weaving.
Mhm.
So in theory, the two of them, as well as a third person that would have a ring of power, could be in this series. Whether or not they do that or not, they didn't really ever say whether or not they were the original bearers of those rings. They could have been passed down. They could have been given to someone else. We just know they were given to the elves.
Mhm.
Now that might be somewhere in like the Lord of the Rings appendices. Like J.R.R. Tolkien wrote a ton of stuff about the history and lore, so maybe I just don't know. And yes, it has been confirmed either that they were the original owners or they weren't. I don't know for sure. From my perspective, I'm approaching it as I don't think we're getting Cate Blanchett and Hugo Weaving, so I think we're going to have different characters getting these rings. And then the other one would be possibly like the Wizards. Now Christopher Lee has passed, so certainly he's not going to be playing Saruman. I don't think Ian McKellen is coming back for this series, so I don't think we're going to get a Gandalf. Or if we did, they could do younger versions of those characters and recast them. I mean, we've seen a younger Ian McKellen with Michael Fassbender in the X-Men series. I don't think Michael Fassbender is going to be coming to play Gandalf.
You can play Gandalf? Yeah, sure, man.
But it would be interesting to see if we get any of those characters as their younger selves.
Yeah, I'm curious on it. I mean, again, I'm not a big fan of prequels, but for this one, since none of the other characters are really going to be there, I like the fact that we might get some of that wariness of like, could they die in it? And I'm excited for that.
And the production value of the show is they've spent so much money, it's ridiculous. So, but we'll see. I don't know. I think the only other big, I guess, news story to talk about is one that you actually already covered in a couple other videos.
Yes.
Which was Microsoft's acquisition of Blizzard. Is that correct?
Of Activision Blizzard. So Microsoft earlier this week, I believe it was released Monday or Tuesday. They are planning to do a complete cash buyout of the company called Activision Blizzard, who's best known for the Call of Duty franchise, Candy Crush, Call of Duty, World of Warcraft, and Hearthstone. Those are the big ones that everyone pretty much knows, at least one of those games I've mentioned. So they spent, and this is the biggest acquisition of a gaming company. At first, it used to be $7 billion when Microsoft bought Bethesda, and now the new number is $68.7 billion to buy this company, and now placing Microsoft as the third biggest developer in video games.
There you go.
I'm just like, wow. But yeah, I did a small little video on it earlier, podcast earlier on it, and then me and another guy did another video on it, like kind of breaking it down even further. If you want to go check those two out, go look at Official GYGO on our little podcast platform here, and you can listen to all that. But it's just crazy. Like you wake up and that was all my gaming feeds were just Microsoft bought them. Oh my god, it's like, oh, Microsoft bought them.
Yeah, that's crazy. I just want to end of the show on a light note. So Andrew Garfield has been making the rounds because he's got his movie Tick Tick Boom that it seems very likely he's going to at the very least be nominated for Best Actor, if not also outright win. So he's been given a lot of interviews and things like that, which he's also finally now confirmed and revealed, spoiler alert, that he's in Spider-Man No Way Home. And just a couple fun anecdotes came out this week that I thought were funny. One is that, like Emma Stone, his co-star as Gwen Stacy had been like texting him privately for months about whether or not he was in the movie. And he just kind of like, well, I'm not in it. I'm not so he was maintaining the lie even with her. And I think, she kind of gave a story, like she went to see the movie and was like, you're a jerk, which I think is hilarious.
America's comment to Andrew Garfield, you're a jerk.
Right. But then he also, I just read a story that he was talking about that scene when he first shows up in the movie. And Zendaya's like throwing bread at him to like activate his spidey senses. And he was talking about how that was actually an improvisation by her, like because she was supposed to throw like a candlestick or something, and then there was just a basket of bread on the table. She's like, can I throw this instead? And I think that's hilarious because that is so perfect that she's just like throwing bread at him, and he's just like, that's not how it works, like that's not a threat. Like it's
bread. What am I supposed to dodge with that?
Which was a very funny moment in the show. Or in the movie when she's like not believing who he is, she's just throwing bread at him, and he's like, "What are we doing here?"
It was the best, one of the best improv. That movie, I want to know how much was improv, because I had read that he improv the "I love you" line to the guys, and they were both like, "Thanks." Like that was genuine. Like they didn't know what to say, and it's like, what do you say?
Yeah.
So I want to know how much more was improv. I'm really, really curious.
Yeah, I mean, I think that movie, was really fantastic, and on second watch, I think it got even better. I think it's one that hopefully will continue to get better every time we watch it, because it was just a fun ride. It's very emotional as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a very satisfying movie.
It was a good one. It was definitely a good send off to Willem Dafoe, because I loved him. Yeah. That's all that matters to me.
A good send off for a lot of characters, and who knows? Maybe we'll see some of them back. Some of these actors and actresses may return at a future date. I think we talked about it several months ago. Like Kirsten Dunst kind of had changed her tune on, like talking about, Spider-Man movies and things like that. And so you wonder, it's like, did somebody reach out to her and be like, hey, you might want to tone that down, because you might get a chance to be in one of these pretty soon.
It's like, shut up for a second, because we need you.
I mean, and I think we're gonna have to do something as we get closer to it. But like in Multiverse of Madness, like we could have so many cameos. Like I don't even know where we would begin in talking about that. I don't want to start that conversation now, because there's just too many to get to. I mean,
there's a lot.
Marvel has opened up the multiverse, and at this point, it feels like anything's possible.
Yep. I mean, we can definitely see a young Magneto and an old Magneto in a movie now.
We could.
So on that note, definitely keep a listen out, guys, at Official GYGO on Facebook, on YouTube, on all podcast platforms. We are out there. So wherever you listen to your podcast, definitely check out our other show. We are now starting to do a gaming news, so definitely check those out. This week, we talked about the Microsoft merger, which was a kind of a special episode. I wasn't planning on doing that. And then the normal episode we are releasing will actually be with another friend of mine, and it's going to be just a discussion about where Microsoft should go in the gaming world now. And of course, we have High Five with Robert and Matthew. They talk about different things this week. It's the game, or what's the one for y'all?
The one that just released this week was the top 5 MCU deaths. So there's some good ones out there. Some emotional deaths that we talk about, and even a little bit of controversy, because it wouldn't be High Five without Matthew picking something that I go, really? That's the one you went with? It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, so definitely check all of that stuff out, guys. And of course, keep listening. And I'm Aaron. That's Robert. And this is Get Your Geek On. Stay geeky, guys.
Bye.